Our nonprofit trivia guest this week is Carolyn Solar, the philanthropy director at Feeding America Riverside San Bernardino. Carolyn, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak today.
Yeah. Well, Carolyn, do you want to hear what your prize could be today?
Sure.
Awesome. So you're going to try and answer 3 trivia questions about donor trends for a chance to win the newest Overhead Book Club subscription box, including the book How to Write a Grant by Meredith Noble. And I know
Ooh.
you're the philanthropy director at Feeding America in Riverside and San Bernardino, so you're going to be great at this game. Can you tell me first, what does it mean to be the philanthropy director?
Basically, I oversee everything related to giving. So whether that's volunteers, whether it's, corporate giving, grants, individual giving, all of that fun stuff.
Okay, you're going to be awesome. I can already tell these questions are probably going to be too easy for you. Well, so this week's nonprofit trivia questions come from Classy's report, Why America Gives in 2021. So your first question, in 2020, many nonprofits experienced a decrease in donations due to the pandemic, but individual donors gave us a reason to stay positive. 39% of donors said they plan to do what during the pandemic? A, increase their donations, B, continue donating the same amount as they did pre-pandemic, or C, decrease their donations.
My guess would probably be increased donations.
Yeah, why do you think that?
Yeah, well, I feel like we're in a unique industry in the food bank world because for us, we didn't really see a decline in gifts or a pause in gifts. If anything, it was completely accelerated because of what we do, and it was so pressing during the pandemic. So I would say across the board, it was probably increased gifts. I'm not sure about other organizations, but just from our experience here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You are correct. 39% of donors said they planned to increase their charitable giving during 2020. And in fact, even more donors than that actually did increase their charitable giving. So, Carolyn, tell me a little bit more. You said that you experienced an increase in giving. Tell me, how did the pandemic impact your fundraising efforts at Feeding America Riverside San Bernardino?
Yeah, so to kind of preface, I had just been promoted to philanthropy director in December. The pandemic came just 3 months later. So basically, the entire year plan that I had thought was going to be in place kind of got halted. And we kind of went to crisis mode where all of our staff had to actually work in the warehouse and build emergency food boxes because there were just lines wrapped around our building of people needing food. So every idea that was in progress kind of had to take a pause. And we ended up going a little bit old school, and everyone that made a donation, we just made sure that we made a personal call to them to make sure that they knew what we were working on. And we can kind of tell them, sorry, we're not answering our phones right away. We're busy in the warehouse. The need is exactly what you're seeing on TV. And that's kind of just the way that we navigated the first year. It was crazy. It was chaos, but we made it through.
I love a good personal thank you phone call. I'd love to hear, Carolyn. I mean, I know a lot of nonprofit leaders are nervous about making phone calls or might even feel like they're a waste of time making phone calls to donors. So, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, with all the chaos that was going on, we started calling everyone. So whether it was a $5 donation or a $5,000 donation, every single person that made a gift got some sort of acknowledgement via phone call. I think it was actually really impactful because we had so many donors that were just curious about what was actually going on. So it was our opportunity to say, yeah, I'm the only person at my phone right now because everyone else is in the warehouse. We don't have volunteers. We have tons of people in our parking lot needing food. And our phones are just off the hook right now of people not knowing what to do to get their next meal. So for us, it was a crazy time, but I think it was an opportunity that needed to happen as far as us, having that relationship with our donors and building new relationships. I think we've actually been so lucky that so many people that started giving March 2020 have remained donors of ours.
Yeah, that's definitely another trend that we're seeing is that recurring gifts are increasing since the pandemic. Well, I'm really glad you told me about that. I'm also excited for your chance to win the Overhead Book Club subscription box because your prize comes with a book that's definitely going to help Feeding America's fundraising efforts. It's the book How to Write a Grant by Meredith Noble from learngrantwriting.org. Meredith is a dear friend of mine and an expert grant writing coach who teaches nonprofit professionals how to write grants, even if they have no prior experience. So I'm really excited for you or someone on your team to read this awesome book.
Yeah, that would be super beneficial. I'm not a grant writer myself by trade, so eventually, or not eventually, sometimes I end up dabbling into it a little bit, but any expertise that can be shared is very helpful.
Well, are you ready for your second question?
Sure.
Okay, so from that same study in 2021, donors gave us even more reason to stay positive about fundraising. 84% of donors said in 2021 they planned to do what? A, increase their donations, B, continue donating the same amount they did in 2020, or C, decrease their donations.
Oh my gosh, this is actually one that's kind of stumping me because 2020 was such a unique year. I would say continue giving at the same amount. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Actually, 84% of donors said they would either continue donating the same amount or increase their donations based on 2020. What was your experience between 2020 and 2021?
I would say the biggest difference between 2020 and 2021 is that we did see a decrease in donations, though the people that needed support remained strong. So I think that was a challenge and still remains a challenge, is that our phones were ringing constantly, but the media attention that was coming from it sort of stopped. So it was less attention that was being brought towards hunger in our local community, which made it really challenging to keep up that momentum. So we definitely saw that drop, and we're still kind of navigating how to go about that and hoping to retain our donors a little better.
Well, can you tell me? I mean, I know one thing that I really wanted to ask you on this podcast is why is it so important for people to donate to their local food bank?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that when they give to Feeding America at the national level, they're a wonderful organization, but they're not an actual food bank. So what they're doing by giving to national is supporting kind of the awareness and the relationships, which are also very important to what we do at the local level. There's 200 Feeding America, local food banks across the nation. And all of us fundraise specifically in our own community. So when you donate to a local food bank, you're supporting those food pantries that are right in your neighborhood, those, school, college markets, or, school pantries, at elementary schools. And it's a lot of the on the ground work that we're doing here that you're actually supporting, which is really, really impactful.
That totally makes sense. Well, can I tell you a little bit more about the cool prize that you've already won because you answered 2 of 3 questions correctly?
Sure.
Well, so the Overhead Book Club is a book club created just for nonprofit professionals like you, and we read really great books together, like How to Write a Grant by Meredith Noble. And I wanted to share a short quote from her book because the book is actually a really good mix of how-to information as well as a self-help book. So one of Meredith's tips in the book is to conduct what she calls an energy audit. She says, an energized life comes from thousands of micro intentions and actions to preserve your positive energy. Start auditing your days. What activities, people, or places give or take energy? Add one positive energy producing activity into your day and start making plans to remove the negative energy. So, Carolyn, I'd love to ask, what is one positive energy producing action that listeners should add into their day?
Oh man. I think in our volunteer area, we have, even though it's a warehouse setting, we have this little area where it's kind of just a rest area and a relaxation area. So our volunteers can go over there and take breaks. But I think that's a great area to actually work because you're seeing what exactly is happening in the food bank. Our volunteers, that area specifically is where hunger ends. That's where we get those food donations and make sure that everything is good before we can even give it to the community. So that's really where we're deciding whether items are good or bad. And in that area, I think it's really rewarding to work because you're able to see what we're doing and where it's going. You see it progressing through the food bank, which is nice.
I love that so much, Carolyn. I actually interviewed another executive director several years ago who told me she always eats lunch with her volunteers. And I don't know how practical that is during the pandemic, but I just the same point, like you're inspired by people who are inspired by you and by your organization. So I love that.
Yeah, and we have just amazing volunteers in general. We have a volunteer lead program, which is really great because it's about 5 to 7 volunteers that are here every single week, and we can count on them. And for them, it's an opportunity to see each other. They're almost like family now because they've all been coming for several years. And what brings them together is our mission, which is really powerful.
I love that. Well, Carolyn, you've already won our game, but do you want your final third question?
Sure.
Okay, which generation of donors is most likely to learn about a new cause through social media? A, Generation Z, B, Millennials, C, Generation X, or D, Boomers?
Probably millennials.
Oh, this was your first incorrect one. It's actually A, Generation Z. These are the people who are born in the mid to late 1990s up to the early 2010s. And they're the ones who are most likely to learn about a new cause through social media. In comparison, their parents in Generation X are most likely to learn about new causes through traditional media, which is what I think you were talking about, that the National Feeding America organization does a lot of work in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, where do you think that most of your donors learn about your organization for the first time?
Maybe social media.
Yeah, you think? What makes you think that?
We're pretty active across all of our social medias. We do Facebook, Instagram. We recently started doing TikTok as well, which is fun and exciting. So it's something that we enjoy, and I think the most passion goes into that. So I would think that as somebody who's looking at organizations, they're probably going to gravitate towards that because you can tell by what we post that we're passionate about what we're doing.
I love that answer. And actually, a lot of people have come to me and asked, should my nonprofit be on TikTok? Is it worth the time? What are some examples of like recent TikTok videos that you guys have done?
So we just started our account. So in the past weeks, we've just been seeing what other food banks are doing to kind of, build, I guess, an audience. We've done one TikTok so far, and it was basically a day in the life. So it was following basically one of our drivers through one of our food distribution programs. So our marketing staff kind of followed him as he was putting things together in the truck, going to the site, feeding the community. And it was a brand new program that we have that we partnered with LA Food Bank on. So for this specific program, we were helping seniors. It was really nice to see our driver actually like filling the carts for the seniors. So it was a wonderful program that I'm hoping that one actually does pretty well, but we're working on highlighting all of our programs on there, which hopefully it kind of sparks, that, light bulb in people's minds to contribute to what we're doing and why it's powerful and why it's, essential for the community to support.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a question I had for you is how can listeners who are interested in learning more about Feeding America Riverside San Bernardino find you guys on social media or on your website?
Yeah, so our website is feedingie.org, IE as in Inland Empire, since we're the Inland Empire's food bank. And we're on most social medias as either Feeding America IE or Feeding IE. So use either of those and you can find out what we're doing. We're pretty active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and now TikTok, which is exciting. But yeah, that's probably the best way to stay up to date on what we're doing. Our website is also updated frequently. So there's an About Us tab and About Our Programs tab to where you can kind of keep track of what we're doing and how our programs are growing in the community.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for Carolyn for coming on the show. You won our February Overhead Book Club subscription box and a free copy of the book, How to Write a Grant by Meredith Noble. Listeners, if you want to check out Meredith's book or even her master course on how to become a grant writer, just go online to learngrantwriting.org. Thank you so much for being here today, Carolyn.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was wonderful speaking to you.